And live. Good evening and welcome to the Jungle Chasers show. We have a great lineup for you tonight. I hope you enjoy it as much as we have in putting this together. Presentation on microbursts, and I think we're going to add a new feature tonight, and that will be the daily weather. So I hope you get on board for this. My name is Patty. My call sign is KD0AEL. I am the Regional Skywarn Coordinator for Southwest Missouri and 3 counties in Southeast Kansas. And welcome aboard, boys. Introduce yourselves.
Well, I guess I'll go first, means I just now finished typing in the chat room. My name is Franklin, KD0RSJ. I am the county coordinator for Greene County Skywarn, one of those counties that is under Patty's purview. And I'll be watching the chat room most of the evening. We all kind of watch it off and on, but I pretty much watch it throughout the whole thing. So if you've got anything that you want brought up during the live stream, just type it there and I will introduce it here.
And hello, my name is Rodney. I'm one of the hosts of Jungle Chasers. As far as anything else, I'm not really a coordinator for anything. However, I do run backup from time to time on the 2 different Skywarns, mostly secondary on the regional, and I can also be primary or whatnot for Greene County. So, and I'm also just an enthusiast. So, if I can bring anything as far as my knowledge to help someone else, that's all about it. So, thanks for having us tonight, and looking forward to showing you what we have to give you. So,
and I'm producer Steve, aka KA0SPM. I'm not really behind the scenes. I actually have a camera on me tonight, so oh boy.
I see that.
Yeah. Normally Steve is the disembodied voice, but now we have a face.
Yeah. Kind of cool, huh?
Well, the producer needs their moments of fame as well.
So anyway, go over to you, Patty, and we actually have a real itinerary tonight.
Mm-hmm.
We do. And why don't you, since you set it up, why don't you tell us what's next on the agenda here?
Okay, well, a new segment for the show tonight is basically what's going on in the weather. What do we got going on right now right now I guess the big news, other than some terrestrial stuff, which all of you get a chance to talk about, is a tropical depression down in the Gulf. I'm going to do my best here to bring that up so that you can see it. We have a depression in the Gulf of Mexico, and that would be in this area here. I can't draw on my screen. It's having the appearances of the development of a tropical storm. And it has not yet got a name, but the warnings are already out for tropical storms, and that would be Port Mansfield to St. Louis Pass in Texas. There's also, that's a tropical storm warning and tropical storm watch from St. Louis Pass to High Island, Texas. Tropical storm warning means that tropical storm conditions are expected somewhere within the warning area within 36 hours. Tropical storm watch means that tropical storm conditions are possible within the watch area, generally within 48 hours. Interests along the Texas and Louisiana coast should monitor the progress of the system. Tropical storm warnings may be required for portions of the watch area later today. And for storm information specific to your area, including possible inland watches and warnings, please monitor products issued by your National Weather Service Forecast Office. This, because of our role as amateur radio operators, The Hurricane Watch Net is an important part of amateur radio. This is their website, and it's hwn.org. They do include the graphical tropical weather outlook that the National Hurricane Center in Florida issues with their graphics, and you can see down here the number 8 in that section of the Gulf of Mexico is not yet developed to that big enough to be a named storm. They on their website include a hurricane watch in effect for Barbados, St. Vincent, and the Grenadines, which that's located just north of South America down here in the bottom end of the, I think what they call that is the Lesser Antilles, or a lot of us would almost consider that the Caribbean. They will keep us up to date as ham operators whether or not the Hurricane Watch nets are active at the time. So generally on their front page they're going to say, as it does here, the net is not active at this time, and they'll include click here for our net activations plans. So they only activate during hurricanes that threatened North America. So, if we don't have anything really threatening us, there's really not any point in actually looking. But they do have an option for streaming audio, and it's really a great way to get a idea of what's going on. We do also have a I guess it's a hurricane. It might be a typhoon. Eastern Pacific.
If you're talking about Douglas,
Right.
USA Today is actually calling it a Category 3 hurricane with sustained winds of 125 miles per hour as of late afternoon today.
Yep. So I would need to go back to the graphics for the National Hurricane Center, and we can actually see where that's at.
And while you're going to that, there is a tropical storm in the Atlantic right now, Tropical Storm Gonzales, which they are expecting to become a hurricane on Friday.
Right,
And they're looking that's going to cause a lot of ruckus as well.
That's the Southern Caribbean warnings that they were already issuing. Douglas is out there, of course, to the west of Mexico. I got the graphic up now, so you can see what it looks like.
Yeah, and apparently they're projecting for it to hit Hawaii. And it'll still be either a hurricane or near hurricane strength when it gets to Hawaii. It looks like maybe between 8 p.m. Saturday to 8 p.m. on Sunday is kind of when it will start approaching kind of the Big Island, and then go from there through 8 p.m. Monday.
Now, I have to admit, and this is my own fault, does the Hurricane WatchNet activate for Hawaii?
Yes.
I would assume so.
Yes, they do.
They do.
Okay.
So, again, keep track on hwn.org to see that. I'm going to say that there are surfers making their way to Hawaii as we speak.
Oh, I bet.
Probably.
I have heard before and after a tropical storm or hurricane goes through is some of the best surfing imaginable. And depending on how bad the storm is, sometimes even during the storm, which I wouldn't necessarily advise it, but I've heard of people doing it.
So that's my what's going on in the weather today segment. And if any of you have something to share about what's going on here in the States, please have at it.
Looks like that's happening.
The only other thing that I could add is that apparently the tropical storm that's the depression that's in the Gulf right now is called Tropical Depression 8 is what they called it in the headline of this article that I just pulled up and was looking at. And if it does end up becoming a tropical storm and get a name, it will be Tropical Storm Hannah.
Hannah.
Okay.
Hannah, Hanna. Or as we say in amateur radio, Hotel Alpha, November, November Alpha.
Hotel.
See, is it hotel? Okay.
So
I've sort of been practicing.
there you go. Hey, always good to practice. In the CONUS, as we call the continental U.S., we do have some areas of concern. From up in Montana, across Idaho, down through Utah into Colorado, quite a number of storm reports indicating wind damage. So that's quite a substantial front. I was hoping that the radar would load, but I think Steve and I are overloading our abilities to download. So, and on the East Coast as well, we have New Jersey and Virginia reporting thunderstorm wind damage, wind gusts not horrible, but heading out to sea could affect craft at 40-mile-an-hour wind gusts. So we do have a little bit going on, continental. I don't think we've got much going on in Alaska right now. They had a low pressure move through, and I think it has come down. I am seeing a funnel cloud report in Sheridan County, Montana. Let's zoom in on that here.
I've been in that county.
Almost to
looks
Canada.
like
No,
that's close.
not that
yeah,
one.
that's what I was going to say. Close to the border.
Right on the Canadian border, yeah.
That is an interesting structure.
I've been watching some of these as they go up through the north, and they typically move south. This year, anyway, south to north. So quite different from what we experience here. We get a few of these, but this seems to be a predominant pattern up there.
It's almost like a reverse bow.
Well, I was just now thinking it was almost like a reverse hook.
Yeah, I think, and probably so. If you flip that and bring it from the northwest to the southeast, that would be correct. So
It would be more like a hook echo, yeah.
right. So quite interesting there. Let's see if the velocities will load up on this thing.
You know, with this kind of actually brings up an interesting point, and I've never looked into it, but you know how they always say the way that the storm cells are developed is based on the rotation of the Earth. If the way our storms are kind of structured, where a lot of times the hook echo usually kind of shows up towards the bottom, or at least on the lowest part of the storm. Do you think like opposite hemispheres have that maybe happens oppositely? I mean, would it show maybe the storms would have a hookup?
Isn't it true that in Australia the storms do go anticyclonically?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah, I don't know about as far as the structure being mirrored, but I am pretty for sure that I have heard in the southern hemisphere where typically most of our mesocyclones rotate clockwise. In the southern hemisphere, it's the reverse. They are anti-clockwise. As far as the actual structure itself, I'm not for sure if that's different, and I'm not for sure because I know most of, like our storms usually move pretty much for the most part kind of some form of west to east. I'm not too for sure if in the southern hemisphere if it's still that way or if it's more east to west.
If Daniel Shaw could join us, he would tell us.
Yeah.
He certainly could.
And that's an invitation. If Daniel ever catches our show, we would love to have him on for an interview.
Yeah, I mean, for that
here we
fact,
go.
I'd love to have any kind of meteorologist or, Wouldn't it be cool to have Reed Timmer one night? I mean, if we just throw it out there and just say, "Hey, will you join us for a thing?" I think that would be really cool.
That
But
would
I
be
don't
awesome.
know. Reed, if you're
Reed,
watching, we want you as one of our special guests. So
Reed would be really cool. Another person that me and Patty are familiar with that would be really cool to have as well would be Skip Talbert.
Skip Talbot or Pecos Hank.
Yeah.
Any
yeah.
one
oh,
of those
Pecos
guys
Hank would be awesome.
I bet
would love
Pankus
to have
Hank would
those
do it if
guys
we
on
just
board.
asked him. He'd get on
Now,
here.
what-
We got to have good questions to ask, though.
Yeah,
is
we don't
that
want to waste
kind
his
of-
time.
Oval-shaped thing just on the other side of the border.
That's a hill core.
Is that Hill Core? Okay.
Yeah,
I couldn't
that's a
quite
Hill Core.
see it. Okay,
There
I
you
see
go.
it better now.
Your feed doesn't
It just-
include Canadian radar, does it?
I've got Alaska, Russia, Arabia, Northern Europe, South America, New England, Pacific Islands,
I know
Oceania, Antarctica, South Africa, Greece, South Asia.
No Canada.
I'll have to see if maybe I can add that.
It would
I won't
surprise
waste our
me.
time here today.
Yeah, it would surprise me if you can't, because I know radar scope includes Canadian radar.
So yeah, radar scope includes South Korea.
Now
Yeah.
it only shows just a bit of the actual southern end of most of Canada because there is no radar north of there.
North there. Because
Right.
it's probably because the population is so sparse.
Yeah, they really would only be protecting polar bears up there, and I don't think they need it. I think they're good.
So one more in space weather, as you can see over my shoulder, we've had quite a bit of excitement over Comet Neowise. Last night was actually the last good viewing night for it. It was the closest to the Earth that it's going to be in this pass, and from here it continues to move out. Steve and I took off Saturday night, and it was the one night that I just had a strong hunch would be the clearest skies. So I took off work, and we went to Stockton Lake. And wow, what a show. It was amazing to watch this thing. And caught the Milky Way as well. So that was a big bonus for the trip. It was worth the lack of sleep for the next day for work.
Oh wow, yeah.
Last night would not have been too bad, but there was also that point of loading about a ton worth of older radio equipment in the vehicle and taking it home. It was like, I think I'm
Yeah.
going to sleep.
Yeah. Well deserved. Well deserved. So, and if you're out there looking, I don't know if you can tell from this photo of mine, that is the Big Dipper up above this. From
Right in that.
That's Comet Neowise, and just up to the right, right and up of that is the Big Dipper. And if you look down from the lowest star on the Dipper Cup down to the left a bit, you will see what looks almost like a paintbrush stroke across the sky, and that is the tail of the comet.
Okay, cool. Because I know last night on Ham Nation on the live segment that Dr. Tamitha Scove did about the space weather, she talked about it, and she was saying that, of the evening it was close to a constellation, and then I can't remember which one she said it was near just a little bit before sunrise, but she couldn't remember which one it was after sunset near, so it's the Big Dipper then.
It's Ursa Major, yes.
Okay, cool.
And then Scorpius is not, you'll see Scorpius first.
Mhm.
At least that's in the 2 nights that I've seen it. I was able to find a bright star in Scorpius
Mhm.
prior to seeing the Big Dipper, and Scorpius was more almost above me. Um, at that point, then I'd start looking for the Big Dipper, and so yeah, I think Ursa Major would be the closest constellation that we see. I mean, in our perspective to this thing. So they're both kind of chasing the sunset.
I just know that you've been taking quite a few good pictures of it, that's for sure. Between you and Steve, and I don't know that I could pick out a comet with my bare eyes without just someone pointing it out to me,
Well, the first night we went, I never saw it with my eyes. It was all with the camera. And Steve had already been out chasing this thing and had a little bit of an advantage to me, that and a charged battery that I was a little low on that night. And
well, only that I knew where to look, because you couldn't see it with your bare eyes.
I did not know where to look, so it was taking a series of pictures until you found it, and we were fighting cloud cover too. So I got one shot, and it did come out, so I was kind of proud of that. But this was beautiful. The blue skies, post sunset, just amazing. And with both of us with not the greatest eyes, I would having to look out of the corner of our eyes to actually see it. It was pretty amazing, that huge brushstroke across the sky, and it's huge. This photo doesn't do it justice. It was huge.
What was kind of cool was there was a guy and his wife that were loading their boats up at the Stockton Lake Boat Dock where it was at, and he could just see it. When we told him where to look, he said, "I can see it." Well, he goes, it just kind of pays off, I guess, to have poor eyesight, because that's what made it so he could see it. All of us had better eyesight. We couldn't look at it and see it. Whereas if you looked at the bottom star of the Dipper, it was there. Now, tonight it's the last night of the most easily seen. The comet's going to be in the sky for a while, so there'll be some more photo opportunities. It's just that
I think
easy to see right now.
I'm sorry. I was going to say, I think Dr. Scove said last night that it will be visible, like in telescopes and stuff, to the end of August. But I think she said by this weekend maybe it would probably be a lot harder to see, just with the naked eye.
Right. Yeah, it's going to lose it's losing its tail, because the sun. Solar wind is creating the tail, and as it gets further away, it gets smaller. But that doesn't mean that there won't be some amazing photography yet. I mean, I'm seeing some stuff on my photography pages I follow. It's like, oh, man.
Yeah, I would have liked to have went out and tried to get some pictures of it, but it's just been still a little bit too warm for me, and I'm just starting to feel a bit better, so I haven't wanted to push it too much.
Yeah, we want to keep you as healthy as possible.
I know. Now, one quick question that I was thinking about just a moment ago, and I was kind of thinking, I don't know whether it would make a huge difference or not. Have you tried, either one of you, taking any black and white pictures of the comet and see if it shows up better that way versus color?
Not yet.
Okay.
And
haven't really had to.
Technically, if you do that in mono, you should have 3 times the resolution, but I have not proved that yet.
Well, see, I know some of my photography books that I had gotten back in the day. Of course, this was whenever film still predominated everything, and you were just starting to get kind of what we call pro level digital cameras that were serious digital cameras, the ones that had the between the 1 to 3 megapixel sensors. They had recommended a lot of times black and white, because number one, you can typically get black and white in higher ISO speed ratings than you can color, and sometimes when you take the color out, you can notice certain things a little bit better than you can whenever you've got all the color and everything in there. So that was just kind of why I was wondering about with the digital, if anyone had tried black and white.
Not yet. That's on the agenda. I didn't even get a
My
chance to try
ISO
that new lens I
goes
got
to
from you yet.
24,000. So, and I've done real well with night shots.
Mhm.
If you saw my Milky Way shot, that was done at about 24,000. So, digital is a whole new game.
Well, and see, your camera, it sounds like on the ISO rating will actually go up a little bit higher than mine. Mine, the normal range is capped out at 6,400. I mean, yeah, 6,400. And then you can expand it up to 12,000 something. It has a high setting that you have to go into the menu and turn on, and it's like 12,000, maybe like 12,800 or something like that. That's the max I can do.
I can go to 32,000, but I've never been able to get a shot off with that without a lot of graininess,
A lot of noise.
And I really prefer to keep it down under 12,000.
Gotcha.
It just from my lack of experience in getting the settings right, I get better photos that way.
Well, and another thing that would make a huge difference. Your camera's not full frame, is it?
No.
Okay. Yeah. See, with a full frame sensor, you can get more pixels on the chip, but unless they just pack a ton more pixels in, they're larger pixels. So the larger pixels will gather light better than smaller pixels. So that's part of the reason sometimes the full frame sensors, they will do much better at higher ISOs, not only because they're redoing the algorithms and everything constantly and getting it tweaked where just in general the higher ISOs are better, but with those bigger pixels on those full frame sensors, they gather more light than the smaller. But you get to a point even with them whenever they start packing a ton of pixels, like 30 megapixels. Some of the sensors now, even on full frames, are like 40, 50, almost 60 megapixels. To get those larger densities, they have to make the pixels even smaller, so then they start falling off on the ability to collect as much light again.
Right.
Well, is there any other local or regional weather events that are of note? We pretty good to go here on think we covered it?
I don't think that I'm aware of. We've just been
just our local forecast.
Yeah.
Warm and
local forecast.
Yeah, we can.
What is our storm prediction center saying about the next few days for us?
Hot.
yeah, pretty much.
Hot. I think the next system's
Hot,
coming
more
in
hot.
possibly Monday through Wednesday. We have some shots of rain. And with that, some cooler temperatures, more into the norm than we have been. So that's good news. We need rain. We did get 1.8 inches here, which is much higher than many areas got out of the system that came through. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I've got the hazardous weather outlook up if you want me to read that.
All right.
Please
yeah.
do.
Okay. So, as always, this is for portions of the Missouri Ozarks and extreme southeast Kansas. So day 1 tonight, our expected weather hazards are limited lightning risk. Some isolated thunderstorms will remain possible through the mid to late evening. Heavy rain, frequent cloud-to-ground lightning, wind gusts up to 40 miles per hour, and small hail will be possible with the stronger storms. Days 2 through 7, Friday through Wednesday. Widely scattered thunderstorms will remain possible on Friday and Saturday, mainly during the afternoon and early evening hours. Better chances for thunderstorms can be expected from Monday through Wednesday. Heat index values in the middle 90s to around 100 degrees will occur during the afternoon and early evening hours through Monday. And of course, our spotter activation will not be needed through tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.
No problem.
Are we ready for the main
We
event?
we do. Waylon does have a question on chat. If you wouldn't mind reading that.
Yeah, I was just now reading that. If you want to go ahead, if you've already read that, Steve.
The question is, I noticed that when I see some pretty tall cumulus clouds right here in Springfield, that we still won't see them on the radar necessarily. And he does answer part of that is that if they're in Springfield, quite likely our radar is shooting under them, the Doppler. But when you have clouds, they don't always equate to precipitation, and the density factor there kind of makes it so you don't necessarily catch just clouds on the radar. And Patty, if you want to take that and run with it, you're welcome to.
Well, today was a great example of that. We have what one of our weather forecasters called a couple of years ago pancake skies. We were capped, had fluffy little white flat clouds in the sky, and those just are not something that they're going to be scanning for. There's not a risk factor associated with those. There's no rain associated with those. And it's not that they're dry, they're just not rain clouds, which is what the radar is set up to pick up on. Now, that being said, when they're running in clear air mode, we can see things like bats and birds and bugs and all kinds of things that it will pick up in the scatter dust. But you're not going to see little speckles on the radar when it's no precip clouds. They just don't show up.
I'm assuming this is just my own take on it, that the water vapor that the clouds are made up of, it's just not something that sends very much, if any, energy back to the radar, whereas like rain or sleet, hail, stuff like that, that sends much more energy back.
Right, there's not the density to it. So it's kind of like cotton candy versus ice cream. Which one's going to be more dense? Which one's going to, yeah. So those are cotton candy clouds.
You come up with all of these analogies.
I mean, how dense is? I mean, I guess light rain or mist or whatever. I mean, the radar's still sensitive enough to pick up on those, water vapors, so to speak. If it's coming out of the cloud,
I'm assuming that still, even of itself, is still much, much denser than just the light water vapor that the clouds themselves are made of. Because it's almost, it seems like to me, it's almost on the borderline of it's still technically a solid, but if it went just a little bit more this way, it would be a gas. It's kind of that light.
Well, I mean, isn't it a matter of humidity, right? The humidity is what makes water vapor, or makes it warmer so that you can hold more water. So I'm guessing those clouds, because of the humidity and conditions and whatnot, are not capable of really holding the water vapor and turning it basically become rain, because it has to get to a certain level into the atmosphere, right? Or am I completely off?
That's one portion of the equation. But you have other factors in play when you're dealing with rain. We had very dry mid-level air today, which was why they were capped. They were. I guess I grew up calling those fair weather clouds. It's not going to rain when you see that kind of cloud. They're just not holding the rain. They're not getting the tops to them. But they are building from moisture from the ground. And Steve will talk about sometimes in Iowa, you get these amazing clouds over the cornfields because of the moisture that's there during the day. The corn's dark and so heats up more so than areas around it. and will condense out more water vapor. So you get big clouds over those, but they aren't
Checkerboard
necessarily
clouds.
rain clouds.
And they're gone by 6:30 or 7 every day. It happens every day. Unless they happen to build, there's something that comes in and interacts with it. It'll build thunderstorms, and then they'll happen at night generally. But you'd be clear bluebird mornings up till about 1 or 2 in the afternoon, and then all of a sudden here's these checkerboard cumulus clouds all over the place, and they look like they're in squares because it's how the land sits. And then you're thinking, oh boy, you know, no sunny skies this afternoon, and then by evening you're clear again. And it used to kill us when there were fireworks on the 4th of July. It's like, oh man, it's gonna, oh no. All right, well,
All
Patty,
right.
you have a presentation to talk about, and a couple of videos. I've got the video, the first one you sent queued,
Okay.
and so whenever you're ready, but go ahead and jump in there. And
There we go. So I've been talking, kind of hinting that I would try to put this together, and I hope I do it justice. I tried to keep it simple but complete. Downburst thunderstorms, what are they? Microburst. You'll hear the term microburst or downburst. And we hear it frequently in the summer. A downburst or microburst. Downburst is the general term for all localized strong wind events caused by a strong downdraft within a thunderstorm, while a microburst simply refers to an especially small downburst less than 4 kilometers across, 2 miles roughly. So I'm going to focus more tonight on the microburst part of this. But just know that it's one form of a downburst. Okay.
See,
Microburst.
earlier I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I know earlier when we were talking about that, I was kind of thinking about this question because I hear a lot of times people almost use them interchangeably, and I was thinking there was a little difference between the two.
A little. And see, I have misused the term downburst, I guess, forever, because I didn't know. So this was educational to me as well.
Cool.
A microburst is a localized column of sinking air or a downdraft within a thunderstorm, and is usually less than or equal to 2.5 miles in diameter. Microbursts can cause extensive damage at the surface, and in some instances can be life-threatening. There are 2 primary types of microbursts: wet microbursts and dry microbursts. Wet microbursts are accompanied by significant precipitation and are common in the southeast and in the Midwest, at least here in the summer months. A sudden rush of cool air, downburst, is a sudden rush of cool air toward the ground that can impact with speeds over 70 miles per hour and can produce damage similar to that of a tornado. It usually occurs near the leading edge of a storm or may occur in heavy rain. So this is the makeup of a microburst. You have the cloud base, and what they call virga or rain. This is your downdraft in the middle, and when it hits the ground, you're going to get these horizontal vortices out to the side, and they are visible in one of the videos that I'm going to show you here in a bit. They go out in an outflow, and you will see this outflow go out from the storm when it happens in a ring that shows up on the radar. It's pretty amazing. So what causes this to happen? It all starts with the development of a thunderstorm and the water droplets or hailstones being suspended within the updraft. Sometimes an updraft is so strong it suspends large amounts of these droplets and hailstones in the upper portions of the thunderstorm. There are many factors that lead to evaporational cooling or sinking air, and therefore weakening of the updraft. But once it occurs, that storm is no longer capable of holding that large core of rain or hail up into a thunderstorm. So, Heather, I think, had asked about this last week. There are many factors that lead to this, but once that updraft weakens, everything plummets to the ground. And when it hits the ground, it spreads out in all directions. The location in which the microburst first hits the ground experiences the highest winds and the greatest damage. So if it hits a forest, you're going to have a core area that will sustain the greatest damage, and the damage spreads out from there.
Real quick, Patty. So,
yes.
Would you say that a microburst is a sign of a weakening of the storm?
It's a dying of the storm.
It is.
So, yeah,
okay.
In at least in terms of our summer thunderstorms, the air is cooling aloft, and that storm is going to die. So this is a little GIF file of what a microburst actually looks like, and what a great catch this photographer had, catching that ball coming from the cloud in that downburst. Pretty amazing. So it does have a life cycle. The formation, evaporation, and precipitation drag forms the downdraft. Okay. Then there's the impact. The downdraft quickly accelerates and strikes the ground, and it dissipates. The downburst will move away from the point of impact. So that's the dissipation phase of it. Some of this was just easier to copy and paste, and I thank Noah for these notes. A downburst is created by an area of significantly rain-cooled air that, after reaching ground level, spreads out in all directions, producing strong winds. Unlike winds in a tornado, winds in a downburst are directed outwards from the point where it hits land or water. Dry downbursts are associated with thunderstorms that have very little rain, while wet downbursts that we typically see here are created by thunderstorms with high amounts of rainfall. Microbursts and macrobursts are downbursts at very small and larger scales, respectively. Another variety, and I didn't go into that for the purposes here, is called a heat burst. We did have one of these a couple of years ago, and I think our temperatures went up like 15 or 20 degrees when it happened. Created by vertical currents on the backside of old outflow boundaries and squall lines where rainfall is lacking. Heat bursts generate significantly higher temperatures due to the lack of rain-cooled air in their formation. Downbursts create vertical wind shear or microbursts, which is dangerous to aviation, and we'll talk about that here in a bit. How high can the wind get? Around here, I have heard 90 to 100 miles per hour, but evidently they can go higher. That 90 to 100 is the equivalent to an EF1 tornado. Thus, it can cause major damage to homes and other structures and level trees. It's very important that if there is a severe thunderstorm warning issued for any type of wind, take it just as seriously as tornadoes. I could go off on a rant there, and I won't. I have some images here to show you how much damage can be caused by microburst winds. I think this one amazed me. It's obviously some new construction, but just destroyed what they were doing.
It almost makes it look like a pile of matchsticks.
It does. It does. This was a home that was fully constructed, obviously. I see some furniture and things laying around, so that somebody was living in this home.
Looks like a piece of siding in that tree, almost just off center to the left.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe lofted by those curly
the
winds
wave
on
that came
yeah.
out.
that came out from it, blowing trees over.
Mhm.
So NWS can and does forecast these. Forecasting microbursts is typically done on a near-term basis, usually within 6 to 12 hours before the convection is expected to develop. Some of the parameters that they will use on any day, primarily in summer: instability, high precipitable water, dry air in the mid-levels, and strong winds in the dry layer are just a few of those parameters that they will be watching for the possible development of the microbursts. Ideal conditions when that instability builds in the didactic, the late afternoon, early evening of the hot summertime. And for the soundings, this might be what one would look like. You have that mid-level dry air with those strong winds aloft and low-level moisture that's building. So warnings are tough on these. They're usually very short-lived. So when interpreting the radar data, forecasts will look for converging air in the mid-levels of the thunderstorm, or known as a mark signature. And I think it was Mark that talked about this with us here a short while ago, looking for those mark signatures. The divergence, in other words, in the cloud, in the mid-levels. They are short-lived. They can occur between radar scans. So if you think about a storm or a burst that lasts 5 minutes, by the time it's detected on radar, it's done.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, severe thunderstorm warnings, if given, the lead times can be very short. Often there are no warnings at all.
See, I was kind of wondering about that, what the lead time potentially could be. I figure it's probably minutes.
The seconds, minutes. So there may be no warnings on these, and some horrific damage. So our understanding of this continues to increase, and hopefully will lead to some lead times in the future. Now, that being said, they've come a long way, and we'll be talking about that in terms of avionics. It's been 26 years since we've lost a plane to a downburst, so they've come a long way in at least giving a heads up to the pilots that these conditions exist. Back on topic. When a microburst reaches the ground, a divergence signature can be seen on radar. So if we remember what divergence is, it's the air going away in two directions. We've got air moving away here, and instead of converging like we'll see in a tornado vortex signature, it diverges, so it pushes away from itself. And I don't think I pulled that up. So first video, if you would, Steve. This talks about the difference between a microburst and a macroburst, and a little bit of just a summary of what I've talked about.
A downburst is a strong downdraft or very fast downward moving winds that cause major damage at the ground and are associated with strong thunderstorm development. Microbursts and macrobursts are downbursts with relative sizes characterized by the extent of their outburst. A microburst extends 2.5 miles or less horizontally, lasting 5 to 15 minutes, with damaging winds as high as 168 miles per hour. Alternatively, a macroburst is a very large downburst with winds extending greater than 2.5 miles, lasting 5 to 30 minutes, and reaching up to 134 miles per hour. These winds develop in the upper levels of a thunderstorm where cold air begins to descend through the cloud, falling at speeds less than 20 miles per hour. As the colder air hits the ground, it spreads out horizontally, then begins to roll back up vertically, making horizontal vortex rings as cooler air is rolled out and compressed. This action can create straight-line wind gusts, even more powerful than a tornado.
And there is the horizontal vortices on the sides. It's very visible in that.
Outward hence the names of the outward flow. Hence the name straight-line winds.
Thank you, Steve.
Yep.
So I mentioned dry downburst, and we don't see those here. We tend to have high precip storms. I think this is probably something more seen into the Central Plains areas where they have those low precip storms. It is a microburst localized downdraft of air from a thunderstorm. And in this case, the precipitation evaporates within the downdraft. Thus, strong straight line winds can be experienced at the surface, but with the absence of precipitation. Now, wouldn't that be odd? So you have this damage out in the middle of a crop field, and it hasn't rained. You've had thunderheads around, big, tall, cumulus clouds that are weakening, appear to be weakening to the eye, but no rain, and here you have damage. That would be really odd. So I talked a little bit about aviation. Here's where we have really excelled with our, I say we, the National Weather Service has really excelled. And this is a celebration for us. June 2nd marked the 26th anniversary of the last air flight lost to a downburst wind. Very amazing. And when you look back at the 70s, and we were seeing a plane lost every year, roughly, commercial airliners were really taking a hit in these wind shears. Ozark Airlines, St. Louis, 1973, Eastern Airlines, New York, 1975, Continental, Denver, 75, Allegheny, Philadelphia, 76. I mean, the list goes on. Our very last, go ahead.
If I'm not mistaken, early on, even kind of into the early 80s, they weren't quite 100% exactly what all was causing this. It kind of took a little while for them to kind of identify the downburst as what was causing it, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. And we have to grant Fujita the kudos here in discovering what this was and bringing it to their attention so they could do the research and what what the parameters were to look for to prevent this from happening. Of all the plane crashes we had, nearly 500 people were killed in these crashes. Some survivors' injuries were exceptionally severe, with a high number of quadriplegics. The 1985 crash of Delta Flight 191 was the one flight, and we're going to see this in this next video, what happened with them. But this is where Fujita's work paid off, and the FAA began an urgent program with the help of Fujita's colleague, John McCarthy, to create a warning system and to train pilots on pertinent piloting techniques. So it's the end of the skepticism that accounted for a 9-year gap between the Delta flight in Dallas in 85 and U.S. Air in Charlotte in 94. U.S. Air pilots do receive wind shear alerts, and in those cases, those two cases, received those alerts but decided to continue their approaches. So some of that was on the pilots. So we have to give kudos to our weather service and Dr. Fujita posthumously. I think he deserves a Nobel award for this because is definitely between the increase in tornado warning system, the lead times, and the downburst alerts that the pilots get. Dr. Fujita has given us some wonderful gifts. All right, so aviation disasters. This talks about, and they go through what happened with flight, I believe it was 191, Delta flight into Dallas, and what happened on board. So those of you who are squeamish, you might not want to watch this. It doesn't show anything graphic, but for those of you who are a little squeamish, you might not want to watch the video. Steve, we're ready.
We learned from it. It was Delta 191.
And thank you for that, Steve. And I stand corrected. So that flight did not get a warning or a heads up. That flight was the flight that got the attention of the FAA, that there really was some dynamics here, and well, NOAA as well, with Dr. Fujita's work. It was the Charlotte flight that got the warning and chose to ignore it. So I have to correct myself there. So again, no domestic airliner has crashed from a storm downburst in 26 years. So this is a huge testament to aviation weather forecasting. And you'll notice a couple of times a day we get the area forecast discussion, and they will tag at the bottom for aviation, and they get their own weather for their flight conditions. So that's pretty amazing that they do that. I want to give huge thanks here to NOAA for the information I was able to find on this, Smithsonian for the video, the Washington Post for some highlighted information on the plane crashes in relation to downbursts, and weather prediction for the other video. And I have any questions out there, I will do my best.
I'm not seeing any right now in the chat room. Maybe there might be some here in just a little bit.
Well, I gotta say that the audio on that second video was good when I tested it, but it delayed when I played it back. So sorry about that.
I just typed out like a quick call for any questions about the presentation, and if I get any that pop up, I will let you know.
All right.
So, Patty, I guess I'll start with something. The energy that creates this in a storm, and I think you and I have seen this a lot of times in our summer pattern, where we'll have 3 or 4 little thunderstorms going, and then all of a sudden they all at once just dump and go away. Is that similarly what these are about?
That is very similar to what this is about. Not all of those are going to dump with the intensity that that a microburst would, I guess you could say, quantify as. But yes, that is essentially what's going on. Those storms, they reach that potential where they can hold no more, and that cold air starts to predominate in the mid levels and kills them off, and so they dump what they've got left and they're done.
I've seen this. As a sky watcher my whole life, to watch a storm drop rain from several thousand feet in a big dump like that, it's kind of amazing to see it happen. It's like, whoa.
Oh, I'm sure.
I got a photo from Spotter some years ago when I was running Greene County. And, well, Gary Jackson was out, and he sent me a photo. I wish I still had it. I could probably dig back through chats from days gone by. And it was this white wall of water. And if I recall, the fair was going on, and it dumped on the fairgrounds.
Oh my!
It was a microburst. No one was hurt, but it was absolutely amazing. And his question to me was, "What the heck is that?" Because we hadn't talked about it in spotter training. It's they focus on the severe thunderstorms. They focus on things that we have long range modeling for, tornadoes and thunderstorms. But the microbursts, they haven't called on us to do much with those because you can't really forecast where they're going to be.
Well, it's a little different around an airport because of the success they've had. They watch that very closely, and they can up to the minute update an aircraft to divert if there's the possibility there's going to be a downburst. And that's not something that we necessarily need to hear as the general public, but an airliner landing at the Springfield airport definitely needs to hear that.
I have heard and it doesn't go out as a severe thunderstorm warning, but I have seen in chat where they will say these storms have the potential for microburst as they dissipate. And something for us as net controls to really be mindful of and maybe focus on those areas when we're on the net, to say, persons in this area, as this storm dies, it could create a microburst that could create some damaging winds, so that people are a bit prepared.
Yeah, definitely, because I would not want to be underneath one of those downdrafts as that's coming down, or also be in the path of that kind of that outflow, that wake that comes after it's hit the ground. I could see that potentially flipping a vehicle.
Oh yeah, well, if it can flip an airliner,
yeah,
certainly.
Does real quick, do they actually put tags on the thunderstorms in situations like that, like they do tornadoes, where they would say microburst or downburst possible? Would they put that as part of the warning?
I think they actually have an
I
aviation weather.
Right, but not just for that. But I hear you, Rodney. I don't know that I've seen it in a thunderstorm warning. I've seen them post in chat. I was sitting here trying to remember, have I seen that particular tag? Maybe? Not
Well, I
frequently.
mean, I guess the only reason you couldn't do that is, like you
either.
say, sometimes it's within seconds or minutes. So it's kind of hard for them to put that into a warning scenario, maybe, I guess is the best way to put it. Or are they able to kind of like add to that warning?
Oh, they're constantly modifying, so certainly they would. Certainly they would. Let me look something up here.
So
Well,
I've got the
pulling
Weather
this up.
Service Aviation Weather Center up, and there's a whole lot of terms in there we don't know. Airmets, SIGMETs.
Sure.
I have no idea what that means, but to an aviator, that's very important. They even do forecasts on convective currents, which is like, I guess, pretty amazing. But Aviation Weather Center, it's available right on the front page of the National Weather Service, your local office forecast page.
So maybe this will answer the question. There's actually a product description on this impact weight-based warning format. Impact-based warning. Severes. Severe thunderstorm
Are you doing any
warnings.
Google Ninja there, Steve?
Nope, I am trying to figure out why my OBS on the second computer froze.
Well, I did do a little Google ninjaing while we were watching that second video. Patty had mentioned not only just for this, but for the infinite amount of different avenues that he contributed to weather science, that Dr. Fujita, if he hasn't been at least nominated, should be nominated for a Nobel Prize. And I was kind of thinking, well, in what category would that be? And I was actually kind of surprised to find out there are only 6 categories: physics, chemistry, medicine, literature, peace, and economic sciences. And then I got to thinking, well, it probably wouldn't be chemistry and definitely wouldn't be medicine, but what about maybe physics? And then I searched on Merriam-Webster's online dictionary, and the definition of physics is a science that deals with matter and energy and their interactions. So I would think meteorology, you normally would think of maybe earth sciences, but I think that could qualify, don't you? That's all about energy and how it interacts with the world.
I would think so.
Yeah. So if someone wants to get a hold of those folks in Helsinki and get them clued in.
Let's see. You need crickets or something?
I think we're all thinking.
Everybody's all busy either Googling or doing their
Googling.
We're all thinking.
Googling.
I can talk about the adventures of finding Kiefer in Springfield if you'd like some filler.
No, we're good.
Okay.
So I'm not able to find anything that gives an example of a downburst tag necessarily. I did find something on preparing your home for damaging winds, which would count here. So we get into our summer weather pattern. Make sure you've picked up around your yard, check out your trees, inspect your roof for weak spots, check weather stripping, reinforce windows and doors, get your emergency kit up to date, turn down the temp on your fridge, and update your homeowner's insurance. It says,
Call your agent.
Call your agent.
Oh man.
Bruce, I need to make sure I'm covered for this summer.
Do you guys have microburst coverage?
I would say
They did that. Well, I mean, that's considered act of God, right? I mean,
Right.
in all sense, yeah.
Well, they're
It
generally on
wouldn't
homeowners
surprise
covered
me.
under the storm. So, as an example, if the wind comes along and blows your roof off, it's covering the roof, and then the rain comes along and gets all your furniture wet. It covers the furniture and that's actually separate, which is weird, but it is. It is what it is. And I think the biggest thing most people have to worry about on these things is if you do not reasonably try to protect after damage, they may not cover. So if you don't try to, and reasonably means if you're unable to do it, you just don't have the means to do it.
Yeah.
We understand.
Like
if you could
like
have
if
put a
you've got a
tarp over it and saved it, and you didn't, then yeah, we're not going to cover it.
But now if the storm takes your entire roof off, that's probably not reasonable that someone can get a tarp or several tarps to cover the entire house.
And in that case, it would mean you didn't call for help right away to get your stuff protected.
Gotcha.
Would be the other thing. So it's kind of weird.
Gotcha.
Trust me, I got into insurance enough to be like, I don't want to do this no more. I don't like it.
Any form of insurance is kind of an interesting avenue to go through.
It can be
there's
maddening.
There's a question here, though. So you get your roof blown off by a microburst, and then all of your stuff is soaked from the rain. Is that considered flood? And do you have to have separate flood insurance to cover that?
No. The reason that the stuff got damaged was because your roof got blown off and it rained on it, not because of a separate peril, which flooding is a separate peril, and in most cases you do not get flood insurance from your local agent directly. It's done indirectly through other agencies, because the federal government provides a lot of that insurance. But to be honest with you, if you live in a place that really is unlikely to flood, you can't buy it. You just can't purchase it.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. I was thinking that it was still true that in some certain local areas they do not offer flooding insurance. Like you said, you can't buy it no matter whether you got a fistful of cash and it's like the internet meme here, take my money.
Right.
It's not available. You can't get it.
Yeah. So. Again,
I think the same thing is with earthquake insurance too, I believe.
I think so.
That again is based on threat. Here in the Ozarks, we have a very low threat for earthquakes, so it can be purchased. But say you lived in the Boot Heel, probably not so easily.
Yeah, because they're waiting for the New Madrid to go nuclear again.
Oh yeah, it's gonna destroy us all. That'll be the end.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Now, that being said, when New Madrid went in 1812, there was a great deal of damage here in the Ozarks as a result. It opened up sinkholes. It cracked the ground open. It did amazing, tremendous damage here. Now, granted, we didn't have the population here at that time. This was still a territory, but there were enough that there were events recorded that found, that these potholes had opened. And
if I remember correctly, bells were rung in Boston from that earthquake. It shifted the course of the Mississippi River, I believe temporarily made the river flow backwards, and if I'm not mistaken, a few of those little small lakes down in the Boot Hill are remnants from where the river used to flow before its flow got shifted in that earthquake.
I'm not going to call Reelfoot small.
There's
it's
a
big.
huge lake in Tennessee called Reelfoot.
Mm-hmm.
Reelfoot Lake developed out of that. So, yeah.
We need to go down there fishing. Well, guys, we've come to the segment of the show tonight we lovingly call the 5-minute rant.
I think someone has a rant prepared, if I remember correctly.
I do too, and I think you should go first.
I'm going to listen, because my rant, other than the heat and moving heavy equipment, it's just life. I can't do anything about it, so I'm okay. I'm probably going to be moving some stuff this evening because I have to mow. The neighbor's yard got mowed today, and mine looks terrible. So I got to do something.
It looked terrible before the neighbor's yard got mowed.
Yeah, but at least hers kind of
Yeah,
hers
but-
looked too. Hers was
kind
long
of
too.
blended, though, Patty. His didn't look so bad before.
So that's my rant. I got to mow tomorrow, and I got to move 160 pounds worth of 1,000-watt TVI generator.
And if we could get a hand or two on board to help him move that, because
Oh,
I
actually,
can't.
I've got it now to where it's easy to move because you can put it on a dolly and roll it. I just couldn't lift it out of the back of the truck by myself. And Jordan came by and it was 30 seconds, if that, and we're done.
Well, he probably had some piece of equipment that did it.
Nope, we didn't have time for that.
Nope.
We just lift it up and take it down. And you divide it up 80 pounds a piece, it's not so bad. But 160, it was
I
walked
can probably-
into the truck on 2x6s, but it's not. It didn't come out that way.
I can probably come over and try to help you.
Nah, I'm good. Like I said, I can put it on a dolly and roll it. So in part of that, I casually mentioned to Bob last night before the show started about the Collins amp, and he's gonna get pictures. That stuff is in that collectible realm. We're gonna see about making a deal with someone. I may be taking a road trip to Illinois. I don't know.
Okay.
I'd be willing to trade for a 14 to 18 foot trailer for a stack of Collins gear, if you know what I'm saying.
Ooh.
Yeah. That would be a good trade.
Yeah.
That would be nice.
So, Rodney, weren't you the one that had your rant prepared?
No. I was
No,
thinking
not you.
I was thinking that Steve had a rant.
I
that's
thought
it.
Rodney had one.
That's
No,
he
the
had one
reason
ready
I
to
said
go.
have the rant ready because I wanted to try out the sound effect,
The
but
sound effect.
I don't know if it's even gonna work because I've been messing around with my board. So
Well,
So,
if someone else doesn't have one, I've got a small little rant. It's not the epic proportions of the AT&T internet rant, but I do have a small little one. But if someone else wants to go first, I can wait.
okay,
No,
well
go
hold
ahead.
on. Let's make sure
Oh.
this sound effects works, or else
Okay.
it just loses the whole.
It loses its atmosphere.
So rant alert.
Okay, we got that one. Okay, so Rodney's broken the host. We'll be back here in 3 minutes when we recompose ourselves.
We'll be back right after these messages.
Oh, that's so much fun.
oh my goodness. oh.
Oh my
Okay.
god. Oh my god, that's so much fun. That goes with another sound effect that's funny that I'll probably play off the air when we get done here. But if you've ever heard the sound effect of glass breaking, that one's good too. Can you get his picture? I don't know that I can find it right off the bat, but we might play it off the air just because I don't want to take away from a segment. But here you go. The rant has begun. Go for it.
Okay, so there is a particular camera store here in town that probably everyone knows which one I'm thinking of. I will not mention its name because it is our only local camera store, and I do like the people who work there. It's just, unfortunately, some of the products that they carry is much more expensive than I can get anywhere else. I am looking at, because I traded Steve a lens the other day, and the lens that I got from him did not have any lens caps on it. And I've got a couple other lenses here that I got through different means and stuff that do not have lens caps on them, and I'm kind of a stickler. I like to have the caps on them so that the glass elements don't get scratched or dirty and everything. So I was looking into it at this particular store. I can buy front lens caps that will work on pretty much just about anything. The back caps are a little bit different because they're more tailored towards the specific lens mount, because, you know, some of them have different shapes and different connectors, and the older non-autofocus lenses, a lot of times they have little arms and stuff on them, linkages to connect onto different things, to change the aperture and send information about the lens back to the camera. Before, we had everything with all little shiny gold electronic contacts. So I can't get a back cap for any of these lenses at this store. They just don't carry any of them that'll fit. I can get front caps depending on what size the diameter of the lens is, for anywhere between $9.99 to $14.99 a pop.
I don't think I paid that for a package of caps for my Nikon.
A prominent store in New York City that I have ordered stuff from before.
Would it begin with an A or a B?
A B. She knows the two from New York.
Yeah, the ones that are always closed on Passover.
Intimately.
So I can get a back cap that will work on my Canon FD lenses, plus front caps, for anywhere between $2.95 to, I think the most expensive was $6.95 a piece.
Nice.
I love this local store. I like the people that are there. The people who are there that have been there a long time are knowledgeable. But it's just like half of everything they carry is 2 to 3 or 4 times more expensive than what I can buy elsewhere.
My experience with them has not been good. I walked in as a total novice with a DSLR, looking to purchase a lens, and I actually did online through them. They have sister stores in other states, and so you can order from their website and they'll bring it into the store. And I was asking some very basic questions about this, and he would not let me try it on my camera. He put it on the store camera, and he's like, oh, it's just fine. So I really felt like I was not assisted.
I can understand that. They definitely have had some people in the past that I very much felt that way about. And another thing, whether it's fair or not, if they recognize you and they know you've been in the past before, they kind of tend to give you a little bit extra service, maybe, than if you're just someone who's walked in off the street that they've never seen before.
No way to build new business.
I know. Now, there's a couple of them that I've noticed that are not that way, and like I said, they're ones that have been there for like 10, 15, 20 years. But they do have some new people in there now, since I've been going back in the last couple years off and on a few times. Some of the younger people don't seem like they pay quite as much attention or are as attentive as some of the older people. There's 2 guys and then a woman that's been there at least since I've been going there off and on in the early 2000s, and 1 or 2 of them I think was actually there in the 80s when my parents bought the T70. They sometimes are more attentive, but it's just like they have a particular brand that they carry as kind of like their house brand, and it's ProMaster. And it's like everything I see ProMaster in there, it's easily 2 to 4 times as expensive as other brands. Some of them are good name brands. That's like when you start getting into filters like B&W and Hoya are big name brands. and I can buy a circular polarizing filter from one of them for a 72 millimeter lens, which is a fairly decent sized large lens, for half the cost of what they are charging for a ProMaster.
Yeah. You mean like this?
It disappeared for a second.
It did disappear, didn't it? That's crazy.
Yes.
That's how you
Okay,
covered
yeah,
your face right there. Here's
Yeah.
a secret. Gone.
Okay, come here.
I got you.
Look at that.
Yeah.
And see,
Anyway.
This
and
is
see
what we
another
ran
brand,
into last night.
which
It
I
would
bought
blur
one
out
from
one of
there
us.
Before. Back whenever a little bit after I bought my Elan 7, I bought a 72 millimeter Tiffin. Tiffin is another good, reputable brand of photography filters. I called them here a few weeks back. Nope, they don't carry Tiffin anymore. It's ProMaster.
Oops.
Crazy. Crazy.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that was a lot longer than 5 minutes.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's
Yeah,
that's
but for
probably
him-
I
about
gotta start
5
ranting
minutes,
over the
so-
fact the rant was longer than it's supposed to be.
I know. So
You know, I
someone
had
else-
a set of color bars queued up. I was just gonna go. Brrr.
This has been tested, by the way, and does a great job directly into the sun. So, pretty amazing. But that was bought off of eBay.
Gotcha.
So, I guess the only rant I've got this week is the drunks at the lake.
That was
Oh,
Stockton
boy.
you guys went to? Yeah, I'm pretty for sure. Yeah.
So, we're down there on the boat ramp, and it's shaped like a cross, basically. There's the boat ramp itself, and then there's flanges off to the sides that the trucks can pull into so they can back the trailer in. And we're in a minute little corner, and our car's up the hill. And I needed my other bag because I wanted to get my wide angle lens out, and it was in the other bag. And yeah, as a woman, we can't just walk around behind a tree and have nature do its thing without exposing a lot of us. And I was hoping to make a run to the restroom while I was up there, but unfortunately, there was a pack, and I do say pack, of younger people, and I don't think that there were this many F-bombs dropped during the movie The Big Lebowski.
There were a lot.
There were a lot, man. It's like I had to wait about another hour and a half till they vacated the premises and we got up the hill. But if you can't say something without
An
using
expletive
that-
every other word.
yeah, every other word, it brings your intelligence into question for sure.
Yes.
And I don't know that they were actually being threatening. I think that they were just using that as everyday language, but it does come across as a bit intimidating.
Yeah.
And so alcohol seems to bring that out.
I was hoping that they had a designated boat driver because it seemed like there was plenty of the bubbly to go around with that group.
Well, not just a designated boat driver, but who was going to get them back to town pulling that big boat?
Yeah.
That was a huge boat.
I'm not sure I would have done it cheap. I don't put up with drunks in the boat very good.
Well, we had a comment from the chat room, and he says Rodney knows how he gets. Mr. Killer B was saying, well, if you're talking about rants, I have plenty, as I am a police officer here in the UK, so yeah, that probably says a lot.
I sit and I listen to probably 45-minute rants.
Ooh.
And let me tell you, he experiences all kinds. And so it's hilarious because in a lot of sense, they experience a lot of the same stuff we experience here, especially during protests and things like that. But it's even more peculiar is whenever we were doing it in the United States, and then they started doing it in the United Kingdom, and they're not even part of the same country, and they don't even have the same issue with police officers. So to me, it just didn't make a lot of sense. And so I heard a lot of rants on his end because of him being a police officer. So I can say that so much. So
Yeah. Well, God bless all of our law enforcement. I know from my end, working in mental health, one of my jobs is to listen to people rant when they're upset. And I think that there's a great place in the world for a 5-minute rant or a 10-minute rant. It's a little different when you call with the same rant 3 times a week and you don't do anything to change it.
that's
But a good rant to get it off. And I think in these times when our stress levels are high, and we're going through some social changes, and it's been politicized to the point that our fear is high. It's affecting each of us to different extents. Having someone to rant to is important. And I cut Steve off. He had a week he couldn't bring any political rants to me because my anxiety was so high. I had to take a break from it, especially on my days off. 8 hours a day, 12 hours a day is enough, I can't imagine what the police officers are getting out on the street if I'm getting these kinds of phone calls. And just about every one of them I have to qualify as, so are you having thoughts of hurting yourself? Are you having thoughts of hurting others? Because the rants are pretty intense.
Yeah,
and quite often they'll answer yes to number one.
Of hurting themselves.
Yes.
Well, guys, I got to be honest with you, because we talk, that's kept us all on the sane side, I think. At least the insanity is not too much. And really, we should probably be a little bit proud of ourselves, because the rants have not been terribly insurmountable. It's just life.
No.
You have things that are rant worthy. And I gotta say, I went to the store tonight. I didn't even have a rant about that. I mean, it's like, that says a lot there when you.
That's amazing. I drove to Ritchie. I guess that was my farthest point today. I did a little road trip on my own, and the traffic was great. I was amazed. There was not one person that I can say pulled the battle axe out of me, and I can get pretty vocal in the car when I'm driving. It was a great drive down. It was a great drive back, and I came back into town right at rush hour. So yeah, it was amazing.
You fixed it. You went to Culver's. If there's any problems, you solved it by going to Culver's.
There was
she got some
involved.
ice cream therapy.
No, it was just food.
It was food in general. I hadn't had much, but I was done with my drive at that point, and still didn't have complaints. So,
I will have to say, if I ever get a dash cam for the car, I'm gonna have to modify my behavior.
when Steve and I are driving, and he has his camera or I have my camera mounted, and we're doing in-car stuff, or even just the dash cam stuff for our road trips, I have to really check.
Oh yeah.
We haven't done that in a long time.
No, you guys haven't.
I haven't really done much.
We're
on
getting
my
ready
own
to.
channel.
But yeah, it wouldn't be pretty with me,
Go ahead,
particularly if I'm driving. I'm worse when I'm driving.
One of the best rants we've done though was our drive down the strip in Branson. And that was an intentional rant in that video. It was great.
And it was.
So you got the rant on camera?
Yes.
On the dash cam?
Yes.
Yes.
It's on
We
his
need to
channel.
find it so we can watch it. It could be like our spotlight rant.
It was a tour of Branson Strip with sketchy narrative is what I put. Because quite honestly, we talked about some people that I think are more of an urban legend than anything. It's like, wait a minute, we can't prove any of this.
Oh, God.
And my argument, if I'm brought into court on, it's like, I'm just an amateur, man. I don't even know what I'm talking about.
Plead the fifth on that one.
Yeah.
The comments made in this video are not substantiated by anything of truth.
Yeah.
They are the opinions of the content creators.
So, last night, Rodney, you brought up something, and this is going to be a ham radio thing. The guy that had issues with FT8 and then got onto it and went, is that all that it is? That is a reasonable rant that I've heard from a lot of hams, that they aren't just like hating on FT8. It's just that there's no substance to it.
Let me tell you what's killing ham radio.
Yeah.
There you go. Here's
that
a
one
rant.
came up as, but
No, we
I'm not gonna
we need to get
say.
Jordan on there and let him get started. Hey, Jordan, do you want to be our featured rant for the week? Oh yeah, let me get started.
Yeah.
Here's what's happening to ham radio.
But
Jordan, if
does-
you're watching, I'd love to hear your comments on FTA.
oh yeah, and
So here's one we could bring up, and that's DMR. Does it really have a place alongside analog, especially in emergency communications, or does it fragment our ability to get the communications out there? That's one we need to discuss one of these nights.
That needs to just be a discussion, period. But I think
Right.
what's interesting about that, and I'll just put my 2 cents into it, any way you can communicate is a great way for ham radios to be, utilized. Whether it be digital, analog, CW, whatever the case. If it's a communication way, if it's a way of communicating with someone else, that's important. Now, I'm not saying go out and grab a computer and throw Skype in there and roll that in with, ham radio, but I'm saying if it falls in the radio wave spectrum, I guess is the best way to put it, that's where I think it would be good. Yes, I think DMR is going to have its place. It's just so early in its infancy. People jumped on it so quickly and it almost got stale all of a sudden. Something's going to happen. There's going to be a new this, that, or DMR 3.0, and boom, they're going to be all right all over it again. That's just how technology works. My rant, that's what, 2.5 minutes.
well, the back to what I was saying with the guy you talked to, I've heard that a lot of times. Well, it's not a bad mode, but there's just no substance to it. I want to get on and have a conversation with someone. And
Right.
Yeah.
what I think has been a good thing about FT8 is it gets those, I guess they're the macro hot rods off of there. And they do a macro to introduce themselves. They do a macro to say what their station is, and then it's 73. And it's like, I want to talk. Where are you at?
Well,
FT8 is for contesters. This is my opinion. I haven't tried the mode, but I've watched people use the mode. I've watched YouTube videos on it. It is for contesters. If you want to work all states, work all countries, work all continents, work all counties, that is a great mode to get that done in. And you can get it done quickly. But as for, yeah, point and click, point and click, point and click, point and click, done. And I'm a person, I like a little substance too. Even if I'm in a special event, I'm using RIDI or PSK. I want to have a little more substance there. I want to talk to the people that are calling in. I want to, where are you from? What's going on there?
Right.
It's minus 32. Good grief, how do you survive?
Yeah.
But
And I'm kind of the same way. I've never worked digital, but for the last several years, I've worked a little bit of contacts during Route 66 on the air. And it's kind of where are you from, or how are you doing? Are you enjoying the contest? Have you made very many contacts with the other stations? Well, good luck to you, and hope you can get the rest of the contacts to get the certificate, not just I'm in Springfield, Missouri. Here's my exchange. 73 is on to the next person.
Well, the old days, and I remember clear back when there was a thing called mTOR, and right now people decode a similar product that the National Weather Service does on HF for ships at sea, and it was a very slow, forward error-corrected method of communication. And you could carry on a communication with maybe 3 or 4 hams over the course of a night. When PSK came along, they abandoned that real quick. And RTTY was kind of thrown out too. And so you had this one little section where PSK was just full. Well, what's interesting is that next step was the FT8 change. But the PSK modes are still active. I mean, I can get on there now and still see PSK, Olivia, there's some RIDI going on, and people are chatting. They're having a conversation on ham radio. And I know that's what that guy's looking for. And if there was a way, I wished I had a program on video already that I could just send to him and say, watch this. This is your answer. You will find what you're looking for in that. And that's, I guess, what our job is as club officers, is to make sure everybody knows all of the things that's going on, not just the stuff that interests us,
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I mean, if we're gonna promote it in that respect, we want to make sure we know a little bit about it. We may not be experts,
yeah,
or we can employ someone who is in the club that is
right.
somewhat, familiar with it, and then kind of roll with that. And of course, that's what makes us strong as a club, is we do have a lot of those different strengths. And
We do.
there's a lot of people that probably know a lot more than we do, and that haven't even shared with themselves, saying, oh, well, I've done FT8, or I do FT8, I do FT4, I do blah, 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 all these different things. And it's just a matter of getting to know people and understanding what makes them tick as far as the hobby's concerned.
I
think
introducing new hams to the fact that right now we're talking about digital modes in HF that are achievable. Can you even get into those on 10 meters, or the new frequencies that the text can get into now?
Yeah, you can, and N6.
Okay. So with a computer and a radio that are tied together with a TNC, you can actually download programs like HRD, Ham Radio Deluxe, or FL Digi, and in those programs, not only program your radio to a certain frequency, but then get on there and hold a text conversation with people all over the world. And these digital modes that we're talking about, Olivia, FT8, Hellscriber, there's quite a number of them. These modes get through when voice won't necessarily do so. The digital modes get into the atmosphere and they travel. It's pretty amazing. I've never heard a Japanese station on the air other than through Echolink, but if you get on FT8 and look, they're in there all the time.
JA,
so
they're on there a lot.
yeah, JA, they're on there a lot. So this is a way to get your foot in the door with the HF and maybe get your interest to get up there. You know, Franklin and I are general class, Steve and Rodney are extra class. We have been playing the HF game for a while, all of us, and the digital modes are a great way to do this, especially if you're used to texting. Well, you can text on your computer and talk around the world and do it on a radio. So that's my pitch.
I got to remember that I was president back in that time where we had like 8 paid members.
And 6 active.
Yeah. And I made the announcement that I was going to do a presentation about contesting at the club meeting. And honestly, there was a whole lot of rolling of eyes. Because
Mine included.
the audience I had just weren't contesters. I mean, and we still don't have a lot of hardcore contesters in the group. But I went through all the different things that they do in amateur radio sport, including fox hunting, and it turned heads. People were like, wait a minute, I didn't know they did that, you know. And that's our job. That's those of us who've been around the block a few times, we need to be telling the new guys, this is all the stuff that's out there. And every one of them will find one little niche that they like. And that'll be where you'll find them, you know. And but the key element is they heard about it. And you know, the popularity of shows like Ham Radio 2.0 and that group that they all get together on a Zoom meeting, I can't remember all the names, there's probably 8 or 10 of them. They all do that stuff. They present stuff that you might not have an interest in, but you don't know, and then you hear about it, it's like, oh, that's cool, I gotta do that, you know. So that's something that in our next year, I think we live from field day to field day in the world of ham radio, because field day's kind of that, okay, we've gotten all together and here's all the stuff we've done all year, and then what are we going to do for the next year till next field day? These are all things that have to happen in meetings so that we're doing our job as the leadership of the club. So, my opinion, you know, I mean, I'm sure that there are others out there who's like, well, I don't want to hear about all that other stuff, I ain't interested. Well, you might be.
Well, you might be, and just because you're not interested in it doesn't mean that the person sitting next to you is not interested in it.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Right.
I'm not going to expect everybody to like Skywarn, nor am I going to expect everybody to like doing CW. But like, the one that surprised me was Patrick. He is all over He's all over that. And what I find great about him, we had the young man that was a bit autistic, and he was really not able to verbally express what his mind was thinking. But I'm kind of like, wait a minute, this guy's, there's a whole lot going on. So I'm like, come here. Took him over and showed him Patrick's radios, and he's just like, oh, you know, you could tell that was so cool. Even though we haven't seen him in a meeting in a while, I hope that was something that he'll take with him and go, wow, I can do that. You know, he can sit behind a key. He doesn't have to talk. He can just do code. Which,
well,
for
it's
him,
kind of
talking
interesting
was a problem.
too. I mean, if you think of Larry Lamano, an engineer, you would think that he'd be all over this. He took a sabbatical from ham radio. He lost access to his license, you know, because he just didn't think he'd ever get back into it.
Yeah.
And all it took was just me say, hey, I'm part of the ham radio group. And he's like, oh, really? I used to be ham radio. And then here we are. He's back with his old call sign and going strong as an extra. So, even if you think you may not be in ham radio, you can reignite that, or kindle that, spark, and you'd be surprised what you can learn, because 30 years ago is completely different from what we're doing now.
Right.
And he's still learning, how to talk on the repeaters and things like that he didn't do back then. It was either CW and a little bit here and there. But it's really cool to see him get back to it. Same thing goes for my father, He kept his call sign, but he had basically gotten out of the hobby fairly, strong, at least for a good 30 years. And so then when I started showing interest of being in it, his spark came back, and he's like, oh, hey, my son's doing this. This is cool. Now what am I seeing? He's getting worked all states and all this other stuff on his new rig. So, that fire is there. And that's what I love about that. And I love being able to share that time with him to learn, because he's one of those old extras. He's one of those, he's done a lot of stuff that,
He had to pass 20 words a minute to get his extra.
Oh, yeah. Drive all the way up to Kansas City.
Yep.
And, wait 2 hours to do all that stuff. So, yeah, I've heard those stories, and he's got some good ones I probably haven't heard yet.
Now, if we are ready, I do have a question from the chat room, and it actually is not a weather or radio question. It's actually a photography question.
Oh boy, we're gonna have to start a whole new podcast. I'm out.
Oh, I know. Killer B was asking, and I'm trying to look up the specs right now. He was considering purchasing a 90D Canon digital SLR, kind of from their more kind of prosumer line of cameras, not really like a 5D or a 1D, but not the Rebel series, kind of a step up from that. And he was just wondering what any of us thought about it, if anyone's taken any photos with one. One thing that he's looking at is possibly 4K video. He's done a little bit of research on that, and that's mainly what I'm looking at for the tech specs, because I know some of the more recent Canon cameras that have done 4K, they don't do it full frame. There's a crop factor, and I'm looking to see if that's the case with the 90D.
I believe 90D is still a crop factor camera. That doesn't make it a bad camera.
Oh, no. Well, but see, what you get is you've got a cropped sensor to begin with, but on some of the Canon cameras, they do not use that entire APS-C sensor. You have a further crop within that when you switch over to 4K. See, that's kind of been the issue with the RP and the R in the R series. Even though they're full-frame sensors, when you switch to 4K video, it crops in on that sensor. And that was one of the big thing that everyone was holding their breath on, the announcement for the R5 and the R6, if they would be cropped 4K video, and they are not. They use the whole full frame for the 4K video.
It is an APS-C camera.
Yes. And I'm trying to see, it doesn't really... On here, I'm actually on USA's
Nikon
website. So I'm trying to see if I may have to go to B&H's website to get the info that I'm wanting, because that was kind of a little bit.
Oh, he said it.
Oh, what's that?
You named him.
Oh, well, I go to them and look up so much stuff anyway, and they're not the local camera store that I was talking.
No, they are not.
So.
They are wonderful. I ordered a 150 to 600 millimeter Tamron lens from them, and when it got here, it was for Canon. I broke my heart, man. I was like all over it. I opened the big box, and the little box inside said Canon.
Ooh, ooh, ooh! She wouldn't even let me touch it.
Word,
Oh. So, yeah, it had to go back, and I had to wait again. But they were wonderful. They were absolutely wonderful in walking through the process. Handled the return. They actually had my camera shipped, or my lens shipped before mine made it to UPS to get to them. So they are great to work with. I will say that. Adorama is too. And if you're trying to learn about photography, Adorama has a great YouTube channel. They are top notch in providing schooling for DSLR cameras. And somebody that our viewer might want to look up is okay, Steve, help me out. Frodo's Photos, yes.
You mean Frodo's Photos?
Yeah.
There you go.
.com.
He may have actually tried that camera out.
He does a lot of new reviews.
He does a lot of reviews on his channel, so you might go through there and see if he may have something on there about that.
He probably
Jared
has a couple
Poland.
reviews, and he may actually have a video. He does a lot of videos, kind of suggested settings to go into the menu to set up some of the stuff. He's a good option.
He shoots wrong.
And the other
what
one is
what they said.
Yes, he does.
Yeah. The School of Photography is another good one.
In-camera 4K time lapse. No, I'm just wanting to know if there's a further crop on the 4K video.
No, it's crop free on 4K, 30 frames.
You see, just a little bit of background about Killer B. This gentleman has been around a lot of different things, and it just comes down to him getting bored, and he just jumps into one whole new thing all over again. So not only is he a police officer, but he's in IT. He started a business when he was 15. The guy is a prodigy when it comes to this stuff. So I'm sure he can either learn a lot from you as far as the photography aspect of it, because chances are he could jump into that hobby real quick too.
That would be the only thing that I would caution him to double check on before he bought the 90D. Otherwise, it's a great, awesome camera. I would double check and make sure, because you're going to have a crop factor from the APS-C size sensor, which is going to be 1.6 times on a Canon lens. On a Canon camera. But some of the more recent Canon bodies that have been introduced in like the last 3 to 4 years, when you go and you do like full HP 1080 HP, you've just got that crop factor for the sensor. But when you switch into 4K, it crops in again. So you've got 1.6 for the sensor, then on 4K you've got another 1.6. So you basically have like I guess it'd be like a 3.2 total crop factor, and that's ticked a lot of people off in the 4K video community. Like I said, the RP and the R I know for sure are like that, and ticked off a ton of people, because you've already got, like on an APS-C size sensor, you've already got one crop factor, then they introduce a second one. It's not quite so bad on the RP and the R, being they are full frame sensors, but you've got still a crop factor that you can't use that full frame for your 4K
for the
video.
cause.
All right, no problem. Okay, and then he also, I guess, posted another question also. What cameras do you like, as what I am looking for is something that can take really clear shots when zoomed in and when not, and also 4K video. The video side, set aside because I'm not that knowledgeable on a lot of the video stuff.
I'm gonna
I
step
would
away
say,
too.
as far as clear, good shots, pretty much if you stick with any of the main brands, Canon, Nikon, Sony, Panasonic, Fuji, don't know whether Olympus will still be around very much or not, being they just recently got bought. You're gonna get good images out of those cameras, and I would stick to good either original manufacturer lenses or good third-party lenses. So Sigma, Tamron. I'm hearing some good stuff about Vivitar. There's a company that is, I think, South Korea called Samyang, and they're sometimes sold in the United States also under a brand name like Raikkonen or something like that. I'm hearing very good stuff about them. Pretty good build quality, pretty good value. They are starting to make a few lenses that actually have an auto exposure chip in them, so you can do full exposure control with them on the camera. But a lot of their lenses are still manual aperture, and I'm pretty sure almost all of their lenses are all manual focus. But those are kind of some options to look at as well. See, if you can't tell, I could geek out on this for hours.
So,
Start your own
Killer
podcast
Bees,
for photography.
I've thought about it. I don't know if I'll ever actually do it, but I've thought about it.
if Killer Bees is interested in listening to a voice more similar to his accent, there's a photographer named Gavin Hoey, Hoey. He does video for Adorama, but he also has his own channel, and he's located in the UK and travels quite a lot, but he does some pretty amazing photography, but he's not big on reviewing new cameras, so...
Yeah. And there's a Gavin guy that I watch on YouTube as well. I'm not for sure if that last name is the same or not, but another guy that I really, really like. He does a lot of black and white photography, and he is really into kind of a minimalist style, is Sean Tucker. I like him real well, and I believe he is based in London.
The one guy that came up with the term, and it ain't a new term, but he said it the first time I ever heard it, blowing up a hoolie. And he does photography at the Mach Loop in Wales, where they do the high-speed, low jet stuff, and you get to see all kinds of different planes. That guy, and I'm looking for his name.
Yeah, and see, he said one of the things that he's really wanting to use this camera for is that he owns a boat, and he wants to start getting out and taking photos and documenting his boat trips out with his family, and I think that's a really cool ideal.
Gary Go is that guy's name, and I don't know if he's Scottish or what he is, but he does a lot of landscape photography. But he's done the live version of the Ultimate Guide to Photographing Aircraft in the Mach Loop, which is cool. You know, anytime you see jets going by at a high speed that you're taking pictures of. Of course, guys, I don't know if you know this, we've got the equivalent to that here in the States. They call that Star Wars Canyon, and they go right down into Death Valley.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he commented back that, yes, he's seen some of Sean Tucker's videos before. That's pretty cool. I like him a lot.
So what's cool, too, is Killer Bee is also a pilot.
Wow.
We didn't know that.
Many hats.
Modern day Renaissance man.
Yeah, don't get me started. He can tell you stories. He can tell you stories. We talk many hours. This guy he's definitely one of a kind. He's great to talk to. Great friend.
Well, we'll have to have him on Skype for a live stream sometime just for the fun of it.
Yeah.
We definitely will. He's
That'd be
welcome
We'll have to
to
do
join
it on a
us.
time frame where it's not 4 o'clock in the morning for him too.
True.
I'm surprised he's still up watching, but he may have some kids up, so that happens.
We have a ham in the Joplin community who's a doctor, MD, used to work in ERs. He's a pilot. He loves to be out on the boats. He's out in the RVs. Yeah, it's a lot of similar things. I don't think he's into photography yet.
Mm-hmm.
He's into fitness, and he takes charge of his grandson from time to time, and their adventures are quite fun. He also posts some videos from time to time where he's teaching science projects to this grandson.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and he's involved in Aries, so he's a spotter. Pretty cool.
You said over in Joplin?
Yeah, he's in the Joplin area.
Cool.
You know, the UK would be an amazing place to visit. The problem is I don't think I could see what I wanted to see in 2 weeks.
We have a tour guide waiting.
We've got several tour guides over there, and I think the big problem is you know you got to go see all the big stuff. You know the things that everybody thinks that you should go see. But then there's that because I want to meet the people, because I want to go to the little places, and hang out. There's another 2 weeks right there. You know.
We start in London. We hit all the tourist spots, and then we hop on the train, and we go see Brother Steve across the pond, and he takes us to all those wild, wonderful places off the beaten path, because that's what he does.
A pub. You know, like, what can I say? A pub. Just got to go there. And...
See, my 3 places used to be the UK, France, and Australia. From my watching and fandom of the original Iron Chef show, I've gotten more into I'd like to go to Japan. And over the years, don't ask me why, I guess when I was a kid and teenager, I just didn't think about it as much. There's actually places in Germany that I would like to go to. I've read about Prague and kind of the Czech Republic. I kind of wouldn't mind going and checking out Prague. Prague Castle is actually, I was surprised to find out, the oldest standing medieval castle in all of Europe.
Europe is going to be a whole nother trip.
Oh yeah.
I mean, honestly, I don't think I could see France in a week and be satisfied that I've seen it.
Probably not. And there's even a few places in Russia that I'd like to see. I really would like to see St. Petersburg. I wouldn't mind seeing Moscow. Oh, and Killer B said, trust him. He could give us a police escort the entire way.
That would be the one.
Ooh,
right there.
that's the one.
And if he's ever in the neighborhood, we'll give him the grand tour of Route 66.
Yeah.
Oh, you bet. You bet.
You know the part about Route 66 on our Ham Nations show that we didn't get to talk about because of time constraints is all the people we met from somewhere else there. That's what blows me away. That's what just keeps me going. I want to do another one there because I want to meet all those people. I know it ain't going to be the same with all the other crap going on in the world, but
True.
It was awesome. And yes, I did meet an Italian an Italian ham operator or Spanish ham operator. No English.
Spanish, I believe. Yeah.
No English, but he knew phonetics.
But they knew ham terms. they knew phonetics and ham terms.
Yeah. That was great.
Yeah, that was great. I was a little bit prepared, not specifically for that location, but I was sick a couple years before that, and I was watching a rerun of an old documentary that the local public television station here had produced. about Route 66, and it was around the time whenever they were doing the festival one year, the birthplace of Route 66 festival, and they were showing it, and I was surprised to find out the number of people from around the world, particularly Europeans, that come over here on their vacations to travel part of Route 66, some that is their entire vacation driving Route 66 from Chicago to LA. So I was kind of a little bit prepared for that might be a possibility. We might see some world travelers while we were there. I was not surprised. I was not prepared, and I was surprised by the amount of large groups, 20, 30 plus. And then whenever they said, oh yeah, and we've got a group coming in from Korea later on this afternoon, I was like, what?
Yeah. And they were all in on Route 66. Pants, shirts, hats, the whole bit. Didn't speak a word of English. I was like, whoa. Seriously, I was blown away. I was seriously blown away. I did. And I got to go a few times. You didn't, because I was out there visiting, setting stuff up.
Before, and
ran into an English couple who are like Patty and I, and they were talking about not being able to get to their itinerary because there was always something to see. And just a great conversation with folks. And I'm like, what do you think of it out here in the middle? Just awesome. Love it. Love it. It is so cool.
Well, Killer B said that he does have plans on moving to Florida one day, so he might take us up on that.
Great. Awesome. Do like many other of his fellow countrymen and rent a motorcycle and ride the route. Whole thing.
Yeah. And that was predominantly what the groups all were groups of people who were on motorcycles, and they were driving the route.
Yeah. I found it great that we found at least one pair of ham operators who were driving on their own.
Yeah, and they had a trailer they were pulling behind them.
And I gotta think that there's more than that out there.
Probably.
It's just getting the message to the right people so that they could hook up.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, I think they were blown away. Hey, you want to be a Route 66 station for a little bit?
Yeah.
Sit down and do it. And they're like, what? Okay.
Yeah, we had both of them on there. They both had their license, and they were both calling out and getting contacts.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Seriously, I know we'll have fun with it this year again, but
it's always a fun event. Even when we were just setting up at the Route 66 park here in Springfield on the west side of College Street, and just operating for like 2 or 3 hours on the opening afternoon, it was always fun. But what we've done the last couple of years has made it even funner.
Yeah. Well, I hope our plans go well, because having a location where we can set up a station every night to work, that for anyone that wants to, I think that's going to be a real great thing.
Yeah.
I just can't. I don't have room for it. And since Jordan's where he's
at,
unless he's epoxying floor that week, there's room. We got power. We got space for antennas.
And I would be trying to work contacts from home if I could. It's just with me being in the apartment, I have no place to put up an antenna, and that's kind of the sad trade-off that I kind of had to make for us to move from the house to the apartment. But it really kind of got to the point where when the air conditioning went out, and I was like looking at that plus everything else that needs to be worked on that I have absolutely no money for, and I have no resources through which to borrow the money, I was just like, that's it. I'm going to have to make that sacrifice.
And I think you made a good choice, though.
Yeah,
end of the day.
and I mean, I can still get in on the local repeaters and do all that stuff. I've still got the radio, so if I wanted to, I could put up, a very portable antenna together. I could go out someplace like to Fellows Lake or Springfield Lake or even out to my grandparents' house and throw an antenna up in a
could
tree or something.
also get whip antennas
Mm-hmm.
and a tripod
Mm-hmm.
and set these verticals up on your balcony
Mm-hmm.
and operate from the comfort of your room.
I could. There would
You
be a little bit
can
of
do
some logistics
10.
to run wires and stuff, but yeah, I could
You
do
can
something
do
like that.
10, you can do 20, you can do 40. 10 and 20, 10, 12, 15, and 20 are easy to do with whips.
Yeah.
We've done it mobile.
I also know a
Um,
relatively new FT450D that sits unused while a certain person I know is at work.
Yes, I know.
Ding!
There's
You've
that
got
offer
an
as
open
well.
you've got an open invitation to come use it.
I
know
know we
we
don't
could
have our
possibly
air
do
turned
that.
down as low as you do, but
But
I don't know.
I
I
might
put it on
possibly do that.
71.
I might possibly do that during Route 66 this year.
Well,
So-
you can also do the the remote aspect too. There's no one says that you couldn't maybe get access to a remote station somewhere.
A sign on for one of the websites that do the remote transmit and receive. There's definitely that option as well.
There
Or even
is.
considered maybe making mine one of those. I know it's possible to do. I just haven't had a chance to. I've got enough computer and audio and this and that problems I've got to get worked through before I can get on that.
yeah, but that's the solvable thing there is that Pi remote Raspberry Pi MFJ thing that
Mhm.
sets up your remote audio, push to talk. It's got all the software in it to do. All you got to do is figure out how to get that outside access. Which
Yeah.
we got Jordan.
I've got Jordan and I've got Killer B. I've got both
Yeah.
because they're
So you
they're
can talk
both
to yourself
Jord-
across the pond, right?
Don't get him started across the pond.
Get on there and
I
check
don't
in
have
with
I
DX
apparently
Commander.
didn't have a comeback for that one night when he was like, "Oh well, considering it's not a pond," and I just kind of went, "Crickets, crickets, crickets,"
Yeah.
because I didn't have anything else to say about it. So. Anyway,
So
are we going to give our 73 round? Are we coming up to that?
I think so. Unless somebody has another
I-
pressing topic.
I think we've seen 73 in the rearview mirror, about 15 miles back.
Well, we got to actually
30
say
maybe.
it.
Well, true.
So I'll pick, and we'll start with Franklin, and then Rodney, and then
Okay.
Patty.
Well, I hope everyone's enjoyed the program this evening. We got some information about downbursts and microbursts and a little bit of some humor and entertainment thereafter. And we found out, we like to rant, and apparently lens caps cost different pricing depending on where you buy them from and everything else. So I wish everyone 73s, or if you're not into ham terms, that would be best regards for the remainder of your evening. And until we see you again next week, again, 73s from KD0RSJ, turning it over to Rodney.
All right, guys. Thanks for thanks for joining us. Again, it just goes to show that this show is not just about ham radio, not just about weather. It could easily turn into any conversation. So even if you're not into that, come and watch us. Join us. Subscribe to us. You're going to get some kind of content. Take it with you and use it as you will. Until then, I'm K0FZ, Rodney, and we'll see you next week.
And again, thank you for joining us. It's been a lot of fun tonight, and these guys are right. The content can be anything. which I think is what has brought us together as friends. We have a wide variety of interests here, and while our main focus for this channel is weather, we can divert to about anything because there's a little husky in each of us, and we do let it run loose from time to time. So with that, be safe, be happy, be blessed, be prosperous. 73 and 88 from KD08EL.
All right, and I want to thank everybody that joins us. You know, even if you watch the show later, which I know a few of you do, please hit the like and subscribe button because that really helps us out a bunch. And trust me, we have as much fun, I hope, as you guys have watching it. So, this is KA0SPM, Steve saying 73, and good night to all.
Good night.